can barely count of people who can tell me that they've studied about personal finance in school or in college, where you've been equitably given this knowledge. But if it's given in an institution, if it's given in school, and if it's mandated as compulsory, then everyone's going to get access to it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Maharani Talks. And I'm your host, Mahati Rangarajan. My first guest is someone who has been championing the cause of financial feminism among underprivileged women. Anannya Parekh is the founder and CEO of Inner Goddess, a social startup that is working on building women's financial literacy. Inner Goddess, since its inception in 2016, has helped over 10,000 women across cities like Chennai, Mumbai, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. She also founded Big Sister program to mentor underprivileged young girls. From dropping out of college while studying aerospace engineering, that's right, to heading a social company, Anannya has also been invited to several global summits and is a Kathak dancer. You can learn more about her company on Instagram at Inner Goddess and at Big Sister program, and reach her at Anya Kuti. So let's dive right in. Hi Anannya.
Hi.
Welcome to Maharani Talks.
Thank you so much for having me here.
First of all, how you been holding up?
I've been good. It's just been a little different for me because earlier this year I moved to another city to live away from my parents because of work, and I really enjoyed it because I felt like I was becoming an adult and I was living on my own. But then since the lockdown, I think I had to come back because it's easier to be with family during this time. So I'm just missing a little bit of that. I'm missing my new life. I barely got to live in it to experience it fully. But I am very grateful that I'm with my family and that I have access to everything that I need.
Right. So where are you right now currently?
I'm in Chennai. Chennai is my hometown. This is where I was born and brought up.
Okay. And for your work, you had moved to Delhi, is it?
Yes. Earlier this year.
Okay. Great. So we want to talk about, the work you've been doing through Inner Goddess. And I actually read that it started off as a concept because of you love reading books. And that's how, you got inspired to start it. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I have said this story so many times.
Yeah.
So it may sound a little like rehearsed. But this was when I was, I think, around 20 years old. I was reading this book called Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. She's the chief operating officer of Facebook. And she wrote about how there is a significant gap in terms of leadership when it comes to women and men. And when I read it, I tend to read things that really inspire me or that are written very well, very quickly. So I read it in one sitting. And it just bothered me so much to think that, I'm working so hard and I'm doing so many different things. And I never really considered that I may not be able to succeed because of my identity as opposed to my talents. And that's what the book said. The book said it was not about competency. It was not about, how much intellect one person has. It's just depending on your gender identity, you could be marginalized. I generally don't tend to agree with a lot of things that Sheryl Sandberg says today because of how much I've learned. But at that checkpoint, when I read that book, it angered me enough to think about the fact that this is probably happening to me and it's definitely going to happen to other women as well. And I want to be able to do something about that.
Okay. And you actually dropped out of college, if I'm right.
Yeah.
That's a really bold decision to take.
Yeah.
And, and you said your parents were supportive.
Right. Yes, they were. They are.
Yeah. No, that's great because parents usually tend to be pragmatic when it comes to their children, because they want to protect them.
Yeah.
It must have been a very daunting decision to take, right? Just drop out of college. What pushed you to, do that?
I just want to make this clear that this has nothing to do with pressure from parents or pressure from the institution in any specific way. I think I was just lacking self awareness. I think a lot of students at that age, between 17 and 19, lack the understanding of exactly what they want to do. I mean, it's only fair because we're
Yeah,
so young and
I
you
agree.
can't really know what we want to do. And at that point, I was pretty good at physics and math in school, and a lot of my teachers said, hey, you should think about doing engineering. And then my parents were like, yeah, that's a good idea. And I didn't really stop to think whether it was really a good idea for me, whether it matched my interests. So I decided to do it. And when I was in SRM and I was studying there, I was also working on Inner Goddess. I was also volunteering a lot. I was being subjected to different experiences. And it only reconfirmed the fact that engineering is not my passion. And this is just a personal attribute that if I am not passionate about something, I don't give it my all. I tend to deprioritize it. I don't show up enough. And that really bothers me a lot. Like it
Right.
started to affect my mental health that I was not able to, I didn't feel like going to college. I was doing fairly well in my exams, but I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. And my parents could see that. They could see that I was struggling. So I had to have a difficult conversation with them. And they were like, it's totally fine because your reasons make sense to us and we're here to support you. They only said that, eventually you'll want to study, and whenever you make that decision, we'll be there to help you out. Which is true
Okay.
because I am going to get, I am going to be an undergraduate degree holder soon, and I've been doing this business degree online, which is a different story. But the fact is, while I dropped out, I think I was more afraid of how this would follow me, as in how I would be able to kind of narrate the story. And my friends and family really helped me figure out that narrative. They wanted me to be proud of the decision that I took, and that's why I'm able to recite the story like this now. Otherwise I would have been a little shy or a little embarrassed.
Okay. I'm sure it must have been very difficult to start a social enterprise, and you're just a kid. And I mean, you still are. You're 24, right?
Yeah, I'm 24.
Yeah. So, how, I mean, difficult was it, like, for someone to convince others in what you're doing? Because, again, in our society, it's like, okay, you're just a kid, you're figuring things out, let's take it as it goes. So,
Right.
how hard was it to convince others to believe in your idea?
I think it was fairly easy to convince young people. I was in a time, that time of my life, I was working with a lot of young people. I was also amongst a lot of communities that, based their ethics on youth, based their values on youth. So convincing my friends or convincing people,
Through your ISEC community.
yes, yes, predominantly that. I don't think I had to convince them that this was a problem that needed a solution. They were all very aware that this was a problem. Also, because around that time was when the United Nations also spoke about sustainable development goals a lot with the youth. So the United Nations was talking about these global issues, these bigger global issues with young people. So with young people, I did not have a problem at all. I had a fantastic team. I still have a great team. I've always had a very youthful team, as in we've had volunteers who are as young as 13 and 14 joining us. I think it was a little difficult to convince older people that I was meeting that this was something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Because I think the stigma around social work and doing work in relevance to the social sector is always thought of as a post-retirement plan. They're like, okay, you can start philanthropy work, then you can start your own NGO after you've retired. And for me, that idea just didn't set, because I'm like, I don't know what to do until I retire to be able to do this. I want to do this now. Like, I have realized that this is something that I've committed to and I want to do it now, but I will find a way out to make it sustainable. I'm not going to do it in a way that depletes my resources. I'm going to do it in a way that actually enables me and can be called a job like any other job. So I think having that conversation with older people was a little difficult, but now I think it's not that bad.
Okay. Inner Goddess used to be a for-profit organization before you made it a non-profit. Um, you, given, what is your take on, if youngsters want to start social enterprises, how difficult is it for them to actually, be able to survive, make make themselves and make their enterprise survive?
It's a combination of a for-profit and a non-profit. We never really changed too much of our current business model. It's just now we do a lot more non-profit work, and we use the money that we make to channel it into the non-profit areas. So we're still functioning more or less the same way. It's just we've added more in terms of what we do. To answer the second part of your question, I think for me it was very important to reach out to mentors, or to even understand that needing a mentor is very crucial when you're building something from scratch.
Right.
I was because when you lead something, you tend to have a lot of confirmation bias. You always think that what you're thinking is right, and you are not waiting for someone to come and correct you because you're the one in charge. I think that realized helped me lead better as well. So I think having my mentors since the beginning has helped a lot in ensuring sustainability. They always know when to tell me that maybe this is not going to be profitable. It may be important for you, but it may not be profitable, and you can go ahead and do it, but find a way to make it profitable, as in find other channels and other means by which you can sustain your company. So I think having mentors, having access to people who have been in this field for longer is very important, and that's something that no one should compromise on, especially when they're starting out on their own.
Okay. And right now, with the COVID situation, how are things for Inner Goddess? I'm sure, like a lot of the women that you helped earlier, probably in a much more precarious situation now. Have they? I
Right.
mean, have they reached out to you, or you been reaching out to them? How's that been going on?
I think so. For instance, I think with Inner Goddess, what really helps is that we're consistently trying to innovate, and we're consistently trying to build newer avenues. My team and I took this time to understand that we may need to revamp our curriculum a little bit. So we're kind of working on that. Most of our efforts and energies are going towards that. But at the same time, there have been a lot of girls who've reached out to us on social media saying, I have all this free time and I can't help but get anxious and start thinking about what the future might look like. They have all these questions now, like,
Right.
where am I going? How am I going to spend effectively? Do I have enough money to sustain myself? They were not asking themselves these questions earlier, or not as much, because they were occupied more. They had other things going on. They were part of a community. But now this exceeding sense of isolation is making them
Right.
question a lot of things. So they reached out to us saying, tell us what we can read, tell us what we can do, can I do something? And it was kind of hard for us to tell them that we also are not aware of what the situation is going to look like, but we do know that we can help you plan for a rainy day. We know we can give you some skills now that you can develop and then start using. So we've started hosting webinars, we've started creating a lot of avenues where women can interact with us and our content. So this is
Okay.
for women that have access to Instagram, that have access to the internet. There are a lot of women that we've served that don't. We have unfortunately not been in touch with them. We have no clue how to get in touch with them either, because they're in different parts of the state. But we do know that the kind of situation that they're in is not just subjected to just them. It's, I think, across India,
Yeah.
across the class divide, as in people who come from lower income groups are the most hit by this calamity and by this situation. And a lot of people in positions of power are not able to recognize that. They're not able to kind of help that situation. I'm feeling equally helpless. I don't know what to do, and I really hope I can come up with a solution soon enough.
Okay. The main work of Inner Goddess obviously is to cultivate financial literacy among women. And
Yeah.
I mean, if you actually think about it through your years of Inner Goddess, have you actually found the lack of financial literacy not just among underprivileged women, but across
Hmm.
all strata of the society?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think that? Is that a collective inertia on our side, or is just the way that we are conditioned by society not to worry about finances? I mean, not that not to worry. It's not your, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not exactly what you would wrap your head around.
I think there are different reasons, and some of these reasons are personal, and some of these are consequence of what I've read. I think one is we don't institutionalize the teachings of finance. None of us, I can barely count of people who can tell me that they've studied about personal finance in school or in college, where you've been equitably given this knowledge. It's different when it comes from family, because let's say in a family A, the parents are being open about finances and they want their children to learn. But maybe family B doesn't think like that or hasn't worked like that. And that kind of creates this divide between who knows what. But if it's given in an institution, if it's given in school, and if it's mandated as compulsory, then everyone's going to get access to it. I think that's one reason why we don't think about it, because you are not taught it in a systematic way. I think the second thing is also finance has this connotation of being a little complex and boring. So it's not something that you would want to think of or talk about unless you have a genuine passion for it. I think a lot of people also mistake that personal finance and finance are the same thing. I think finance as a subject is vast and it is complex. It's very interesting. But personal finance is a lifestyle choice. It's something that everyone needs to know, regardless of how good they may be at math or how good they may be at handling money. Eventually, everyone needs to kind of understand that it's important and crucial, which a lot of people don't do. I think there's also a significant stigma around talking about money, as in no one wants to be open and transparent about it. Like if I were going through money problems at home, I would struggle to tell my friends about it. I would struggle to, be open about it. And if someone has access to a lot of money, or they've done really well for themselves, they are also still shy. They also still have this sense of, what if I'm showing off? What if I hurt someone's feelings?
Right.
So I think the conversation about money in general from a very young age hasn't been the most conducive, and that just trickles into your adult life eventually. So I think these are some of the reasons that I can think of that create this divide
Right.
between the knowledge that exists and people implementing it.
And you've actually been putting a policy where you hoping to go meet the Ministry of HRD to, include financial. That was one of your, goals.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're still working
yeah,
on that.
yes. I think it's a little more complex than it sounds. So I'm kind of creating an online petition first to kind of ensure that people are aware that this is a problem that is happening everywhere across the country, and then kind of taking those results and the results of my work and trying to appeal and say, why haven't we institutionalized this yet? Like, what is taking us so long when there's a clear need for it? Also, given a country like India, which is so diverse when it comes to its classism, as in there's a significant poverty problem in our country, they should be prioritizing knowledge like this.
I agree.
It's very important that children all across the country know how to do this, at least for their futures. So that's going to be my take. I haven't really formally done too much work on this front, but I'm hoping that I aim to achieve it in the next few years.
Okay. And especially now with the whole COVID situation, there's even more urgency about understanding these things. I mean,
Yeah.
even if, there's going to be another lockdown, though with different parameters around it, the economy is what they're projecting is that it's going to be bad. And
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot more time, for us to bounce back. And that's when, at a time like this, you realize the importance of saving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you feel a lot more, you're saying a lot more women, especially, whether it's a middle class or upper middle class and all, reaching out to you on social media, wanting to understand this better.
Yeah.
Okay. What age group exactly are you, kind of women are approaching you right now? Can you talk about that?
I think it's really young girls. I think girls between the age of 15 and 35 max. I think there have been some older women as well, but predominantly it's really young girls. I think it's also coming from the fact that they want to take control of their future, and the current situation isn't giving them access to do that, right? It's bleak and it seems uncertain for everyone. And these girls are recognizing that, and they're saying, I want to do something to be able to fix this for myself. I think that's where the anxiety or that notion of wanting to do something is coming from.
Okay. All right. So going forward, what is your work going to be? You're looking mostly at webinars, or um, what is, have you like detailed out a plan, what you're planning to do for the next 6 months?
I think, yeah, we are going to be doing webinars. We're also trying to build communities. We're trying to put women together to be able to learn these things. Because I have realized after working in this space in general for women or to serve women's rights, that in terms of solidarity, putting women in groups really helps. It really helps to know that I'm not the only one going through this. There are other people who are very similar to me, who have very similar identities to me, are also going through this, and someone may have a solution and someone may say something that can generally impact two people. And we're trying to create these kind of communities. We're trying to be less of a teacher. We don't want to take up that role. We want to kind of create a space where learning can be curated and can
Okay.
happen, simultaneously. And there is no necessarily like a power dynamic between someone who knows everything about finance and someone who doesn't. Because like I said, personal finance is not an expert, not an area of expertise. I think it's a lifestyle skill that everyone needs. So that's what we're trying to do. We had a lot of plans to kind of expand our work in the next 6 months, given the fact that I had moved to Delhi. But I don't know what that's going to look like or how much that's going to get postponed. So I think doing as much work as we can online is what I see as the way ahead. But if things change, I think we'll be interacting with a lot more communities. We want to make our work more inclusive. We want to make our reach more diverse. And that was the plan for the rest of the year.
Okay. And you also have this Big Sister mentorship program going on for underprivileged girls. Is
Yeah.
that, I mean, are you doing that concurrently as well? But is that a way to reach out to these girls right at the moment?
Right. That's the problem. The kind of girls that we had kind of impacted through this program were predominantly orphans or predominantly girls who lived in communities that didn't have parental support. And given the fact that this is happening, they are being subjected to a different degree of discomfort. I don't think it's the same as someone who lives with a family. So they don't have access to internet. They don't have proper access to, even calls. I do hear from some of the girls that we've impacted. They call me once in a while. I know why they're calling me. They just want to kind of check up. They want to tell me about what's going on. I try to do my best to ensure that they have their ration, that they have their support. But apart from that, as a program, I don't think we can do too much work because of the nature of the kind of people that we interacted with. And our mobility is affected, right? So as much as they are affected in terms of, not having adequate support, we are affected by not being able to move out
Yeah,
freely. So
I
I,
agree.
I, I can't think of a way that we can do something. I mean, I'm trying to stay in touch with them as much as I can. And they just like, they just want to talk to someone sometimes. I'm trying to be that person for them. But apart from that, I don't think the program can continue until schooling starts for them, because that's something that we
Okay.
did with the program. As of now, it looks a little uncertain.
Okay. All right. And considering that all this whole journey of yours was started by a book, I
Right.
I actually came across your Insta page, milk biscuits, a billet
Yes.
due to books. So you're obviously a huge lover of books. Do you have time now to get to read books?
Yes, I have so much more time to read. I
Okay.
think
I thought you would be busy with
um,
webinars and arranging and consulting stuff.
yeah, I mean, generally that's my life. I'm always trying to like work
Yeah.
with people, but I also spend a lot of time traveling. I spend a lot of time doing things that I would need to do if I was moving about a little bit. But now that I have, extended duration of time, extended uninterrupted, time, I think that gives me time to read more books. It's also helping me diversify my interests when it comes to reading. And Milk Biscuits is actually a project that I started with a friend of mine from Delhi who is also an activist. She also is a social worker. She's also a student. And both of us read the same book at the same time. And we kind of reached out and we said, okay, we should start this page on Instagram and talk about the amount of books that we're reading, because it's not enough to just to talk to each other. We want to let other people know. So that's how it started. I think for me, reading books is also therapeutic, and I need to do it to ensure that I feel more like myself. I feel like I'm learning. So it's also a little bit of it's more than just a hobby. I don't do it only when I have time. I actually make time for it. So given the fact that this lockdown has been, been in my life for a while now, I think I've been reading a lot more. I think that's one positive thing to take from it.
Okay. Considering that you mentioned that it's been therapeutic for you, on an open platform, you've addressed that you had depression and
Have, yeah.
okay, have and that's that is really bold of you to put it on an open platform saying I'm dealing with it. Could you talk a little bit about that?
For sure. I think I'm not really afraid to speak about this, primarily because this happened to me. I mean, I was diagnosed at a very young age. So I've been with it. It's really a part of my life now.
Okay.
I'm also very disciplined when it comes to my self-care. I mean, I do have my bad days and I have days where I can't really deal with anything. But over time, because I have tools, I have access to therapy, I have access to a great support system that is aware of my condition. I think I'm able to draw boundaries really well. Like, I'm able to tell people that, I'm not feeling okay today and I will not be able to do a good job. So you need to give me that time off. And I think that really helps. That's been a blessing in disguise, that I learned how to do these things when I was young. I also talk about it because I genuinely believe that it's not supposed to be a hush hush conversation. The more hush
Yes.
hush it is, the worse it kind of affects other people. I also want to normalize it, saying, there is no specific person or type of person that can get a mental health disorder. It happens to all kinds of people. It happens in different ways. It manifests in different ways. And that's why I talk about it openly. That's why I don't hesitate to use the word depression, and I don't hesitate to use the terminology that people use. So I think
Okay.
that's pretty much it. Would you like to know anything else in detail about it?
No, I want to know how are people understanding, or do you feel they judge you before they get to, because you've been open about it? Do you think people form preconceived notions about what to expect or something?
I okay. This is something that I think is also some degree of privilege that helps me. I think the spaces that I have worked in or that I like to work in are extremely inclusive. And when I say inclusive, it's not just about identity, or not just about your background socioeconomically, but also health wise. Like, I've worked with people who have significant mental and physical disabilities. I've worked with people who've had mental health issues. I work in a space where we collectively are trying to talk about this. So, in fact, it's appreciated that I'm open about it. Otherwise, I tend to be a little oblivious to such certain
Okay.
notions. I'm not aware of what people are thinking of me. Directly, no one has ever come and told me that problem, or that they've insulted me because of it. A lot of people actually on social media have reached out and said that you openly speaking about it is giving me courage to speak about it openly as well, which I think was like a great consequence of me talking
So,
about it.
okay, great. Before we end this conversation, I wanted to ask you, what are your top 5 favorite books?
Oh my god.
If it's that easy,
I
or what have you read in the past, few months since lockdown that you would recommend to our listeners?
Okay, that is a fairly easy question to answer.
Okay.
I think at the top of my head, I'd like to recommend Letters to Vera. I think it's by Vladimir Nabokov, and it's nonfiction, so it's not fictional. It's basically letters that he wrote to his wife when she was predominantly in a sanatorium, and
And that,
it's very beautiful. Sorry.
sorry, and that was your latest,
Yeah.
that was a book that you posted on Instagram, right?
Yes, I did. I
Yeah.
think it
Okay.
impacted me super greatly because I'm a little bit of a cynic when it comes to love. I'm not very open about the concept.
Okay.
And this book opened me up to different ways in which love can be expressed. And I grew a little more closer to the concept. I'm more open minded to it. I think another book that I would like to recommend is A Woman in the Polar Night. It's by Christine Ritter. It's about a woman who joined her husband on an Arctic expedition in the 1920s, if I'm not wrong. And it speaks about how, as a woman in that time and age, she probably dealt with the harshest physical conditions and thrived because of it, and then wrote on it. And that the book was life changing in many ways. And the third one that I will always recommend to anyone who wants to read and start reading on feminism is anything by Virginia Woolf. I think just look her up, pick up an essay, for instance, and just read it, and it will genuinely like change your mind about a lot of things. So I think those are the three recommendations.
Okay, they sound like interesting reads. We should definitely check it out. Thanks so much, Ananya. It was such a pleasure
No
having
worries.
you. If you're listening to this, thank you so much for sticking with us till the end. And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe to Maharani Talks. It is available on most podcasting platforms, including iTunes and Spotify. More importantly, let me know what you thought about it. You can also reach me at Maharani Talks on Instagram or hit me up on Twitter at Mahati Says. Until the next episode, take care.